maybe for recovery perspective or other perspectives. So that needs to be seen. And another thing, today there is a trade notice which has come. What it is saying that whatever will come once I accept or reject the invoice, whatever 2B will be finalized on 20th when I file my 3B, it will freeze on. So the 2B figure will come into my 3B automatically and it will be freezed. I cannot change those figures. Given this, what will happen to the credits which I have not availed? Meaning thereby I have to be conscious that all the credits which I want to avail subsequently, I have to put it into a pending list. Otherwise, I'll not be able to take it. Second problem which I perceive could be there, since the system has not started working, it will be freezed on 1st of January. See, for the past period from 17 till 24, if any credits have not been availed, that means I have to compute and take it till December. Otherwise, from January onwards, I'll not be able to take those credits because I'll not be able to physically fill the 3B form for the purpose of availing the credits. So IMS has to be taken little seriously, I believe, looking at the larger ramifications which it can have. So this is all from my side. In case any questions, I can take it up. These are the topics given to me. So in case any questions, we can take it up, or we can move on with the other presentation, and we can take it at the end of the presentation. Sandeepji, what do you suggest?
I think, sir, we can move to the next presentation if Chairman sir permits. Sir, you are mute, Sandeep ji.
Sir, ਸਾਡੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਜਵਾਨ ਦਾ ਕੰਟਰੋਲ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਅਰੋੜਾ ਜੀ ਕੋਲ ਹੈ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ. So, Pavanji, thank you so much for throwing light on all these topics. I think these are very, very crucial issues which you have touched upon. I remember I'm doing a matter with regard to that classification of railway parts vis-a-vis air conditioning parts. So the problem which had been encountered was that the assessee who was situated in Punjab, he had applied for an advance authority of ruling, and in his case, this was decided to be 28%, whereas there were already some certain authorities, certain advance authority rulings, which were to the tune of 18%, treating these as railway parts, rather not 18, even 12%, I believe.
Right. So those were for electrical parts, I believe.
No, those were for the air conditioning only.
Okay.
Because, you know, in case a person has to apply for the tender, it was not possible to compete at all. And
Absolutely.
Even the factories had virtually come down for shutting down. But anyways, I think this is a very welcome step there. This would ensure uniformity in the future transactions.
Absolutely.
And other issues which we have touched upon with regard to the invoice management and other things, those are very, very crucial. I would request everyone, in case we have the questions on these issues, since Mr. Pava is already there, so we can take up all those questions. Yeah, Pragji, you are most welcome to please ask your question. If you can raise your hand, I will unmute you. You can thereafter ask the question directly from the speaker. Pragji. Mr. Prag Pranjpe.
I think he's from Goa. Pragji.
Pragji, I have requested you to unmute. Or there is a question, Pavanji, from Manjul Mishra. Pragji is there. Please go ahead with your question, sir.
Yeah, good evening, sir. With respect to invoice management system, whatever literature is available, I just read through it. They are saying that although if you don't take any action, it will get auto accepted and it will pass on to your 2B. But there is a caveat to it. It says that for a credit notes, you have to compulsory accept or reject. So can you please throw light on that?
Absolutely, you're correct, Paragji. I missed on mentioning that part. For the credit notes, it's a mandatory aspect that for credit notes, you have to accept or reject it.
So उसके लिए deemed acceptance नहीं है.
उसके लिए deemed acceptance नहीं है. You have to accept or reject it. On real sense, we'll be able to know
मतलब
this month because practically we'll use it and then we'll be able to know how the system is behaving. But yes, as far as the document is concerned, it's saying that for the credit notes, we have to either accept or reject it. And there is no option of pending. I believe what they mean to say is that you can't keep it into the pending box. As in the case of invoices, if you will not accept the credit note, or you accept or reject the credit note, it should be deemed accepted, but you cannot put it to the pending box. For invoices, you have 3 buttons. One is accept, reject, or keep it pending. For credit note, there is no option of keeping it pending.
तो अगर मेरे पास there are multiple situations where there are mistakes from the vendor, from the person who is making the invoices. तो मुझे वो पहले invoice accept करना पड़ेगा, फिर credit note accept करनी पड़ेगी. क्योंकि अगर मैं सिर्फ credit note accept किया तो
yes,
that will be a problem.
उसका invoice pending तो तभी होगा ना अगर वो same month में होगा.
हाँ जी,
अदरवाइज वो accept या rejected होगा, and accepted or rejected on a practical level credit note को आपको accept या reject ही करना पड़ेगा. And if you not rejected,
invoice reject किया हुआ है, समझो we will take an example कि original invoice मेरा है ही नहीं, मैंने reject कर दिया. और अभी मुझे credit note accept करनी पड़ेगी या फिर reject करनी पड़ेगी. अगर reject किया तो या will reject it, but उस वक्त भी हमने credit नहीं लिया है, इस वक्त भी हमको credit नहीं मिलेगा और फिर वो उसका output liability में जाके बैठ जाएगा.
नहीं, आप उसको अगर आप उसको रिजेक्ट कर दोगे तो आपको रिवर्सल का रिक्वायरमेंट खत्म हो जाएगा ना पराग जी.
वो तो सही बात है.
तो लायबिलिटी नहीं आएगा ना, लायबिलिटी नहीं बैठेगा आपके ऊपर.
Also, in case of credit notes, I mean original invoices where the input tax credit is not allowed, अगर उसका credit note आ गया तो भी problem हो जाएगा.
Right. Another problem which we are going to face is, I think, even in case of mismatch of the invoices, we have the option only to reject it. We can't ask for the correction. For example, if there is an invoice for 100 rupees and the vendor has reflected 80 as the invoice, I have to either reject it or accept it. अब मैं reject करूंगा तो मेरा 80 rupees का credit भी जाएगा.
वही तो easily exactly.
Yes, so I cannot correct it, and in case the invoice is not reflecting from my side, I cannot put it on the portal. Like जो one or 2A का 1, 2 and 3 वाला system आना था, वो नहीं है ये. It's very different from that.
बहुत बार ऐसा होता है कि maybe they make a mistake while putting the GST number, तो उन्होंने credit note डाल दिया, तो उसमें भी problem होने वाला है because anyway. So I mean actually the department should come out with some kind of clarification on this, because otherwise then एक mandatory तो कर दिया है, लेकिन जो open होने वाले Pandora box का जो problem है वो they have not addressed at all.
They have not even, I think they have not even perceived it. On realistic sense, they have not seen what kind of problems could be faced, because this kind of system can work in case there are 100, 200, 500 invoices. What the people are going to do when there are 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 invoices in a return. So I was talking to one of the large companies like Flipkart. They said we are facing a trouble in this. Ki either will be just keep all the things pending and take the credit in the next month, because 6 days में हमारे पास तो लाख invoices होते हैं, we cannot see it.
So yeah, so should we switch to the other queries now?
Yeah, I think so.
I think since
we can take it in case time permits, or Parag ji, we can discuss it separately.
Parag ji, in case the time permit, we'll take it up at the end, because a lot of topics are to be touched. I think we are having the other speakers as well. I'll take one more question. Mr. Manjul Mishra says, can't I change ITC figure in GST or 3B after taking action on IMS? If you can quickly answer this, Pawan.
No, we cannot change. Once whatever has been changed in the IMS, that will freeze on in the 3B. And once I file my 3B, I cannot change the system.
All right. So we'll take up all the other questions towards the end. Now I'll request Mr. I'm sorry. Can I request Mr. Jatin Harjai to please start his deliberations? Mr. Jatin Harjai from Rajasthan, Jaipur. Jatin ji, yes. Jatin ji is in full uniform. I think he's attending the kiosk on the other side. Welcome, Jatin ji, please.
Thank you, Sandeep ji. Thank you very much for giving me this much of time so that I could complete my other obligations. Very good afternoon to everyone. So I have been entrusted with the task to touch upon two of the very, I must say, a very hot topic. One is amendment in section 16, and the other one is 128A. I'm thankful for AIFTP, Sandeep ji, for giving me this opportunity so that I can share some of my thoughts, or maybe I can share some, maybe I can touch some of the aspects in relation to them. Let me start with the first section, amendment in section 16. Before I start on the amendment aspect, which we all are aware that there are two amendments. One is insertion of clause 5, another is insertion of clause 6. Before that, it will be, I must say, it would be prudent to touch upon a circular which has been issued before this amendment. I think that will be more fruitful. See, section 16 subsection 4 provides a limitation on taking of the input tax credit. Please mind the word or the term used in section 16 is taking or take. And then it is followed by that that a registered person shall not be entitled to take input tax credit in respect of invoices or debit note for supply of goods or services, etc., etc. So please mind, friends, that this particular phrase, invoice or debit note, is there in the statutory provision from the day one, from 1st July 2017 itself, that the restriction or the limitation for taking input tax credit is not linked with the supply of goods or services. Rather, it is linked with the invoice or debit note of supply of goods or services. So this is what one observation. Then the second quicker observation which one may make is that there is a rule 36 which provides that these are the documents on the basis of which the person can claim the input tax credit. One of the document is invoice made under section 31(3)(f), which commonly is known as RCM invoice or self invoice. Precisely whenever I take like say I'm taking some services from a lawyer, transfer GT or other persons who are covered under the RCM, then I make the invoice on myself. Then the supplier is the unregistered one. So that invoice is being made in terms of section 31(3)(f), and this is what the document on the basis of which I am claiming or any registered person claims input tax credit. Now there was a big issue that when so many people were not aware with the RCM provisions very perfectly. Royalty can be one of the classic cases. That what happened when the people has not paid taxes on royalty, or maybe for that matter any other RCM liability. Now maybe let's say now in year 21, 22, 22, 23, 23, 24, we get to know that this kind of RCM liability was there, but maybe registered person has not discharged that. So now those people has discharged the liability. So the question is, when now the RCM liability has been discharged, let's say even in the present period, like 24, 25, then what will happen to my tax amount which I have deposited? Whether I'll be able to take the credit or not. That is what one of the big issue. If we go by the statutory language is very clear as I read it for you. Section 16 subsection 4 provides a limit or limitation which is linked with invoice or debit note for the supply and not with the supply, that when the supply was made. No, it is not linked with that. It is linked with invoices or debit note for the supply of goods or services. I must refer here one of the very famous judgment from the Honorable Supreme Court, which is Thara Agencies, in which Honorable Supreme Court has specifically said, whenever legislature uses particular term and doesn't use those terms in other provision, both are equally important. And whenever you are going to interpret these type of provisions, you have to give equal importance to what has been said and what has not been said. So this is very important aspect. If you look at this 16.4, it specifically uses the phrase invoice or debit note before the supply, meaning thereby the linking is with the invoice, not with the supply. Nonetheless, the department, as we know, whenever there is a chance, demands are being created. So many a time when the people has paid this kind of taxes, maybe like secondment case happened 2 years ago. secondment, royalty. These are the classic things. GTA, many a places when there was a RCM on some agro commodities were there. That's raw cotton kind of things. And the people took the credit, and the department has made the demand that now this credit is time barred in terms of section 16 subsection 4. I must say that this is what not the statutory interpretation. Finally, now we are having a circular as well. Circular to clarify what the law is, and circular number 211, which came on last week of June 2024, that also clarified the statutory provision in this term, that the linking or the due date for 16.4 has to be counted from the date of the invoice, which is a self-invoice in case of RCM, number one. So this is what one aspect in relation to 16 subsection 4, which is very, very important. Now, if I'll not touch upon amendment and I'll restrict myself to this point, then the outcome is, even if, let's say, I'm going to pay the tax amount under RCM on today, then I can take the credit on today, and rather up till next year's November, I can take the credit of that. That's not a cost to me, that as far as tax is concerned. Yes, but then there will be a cost of interest, or maybe in cases whereby 76 notice has been issued, penalty, 10% penalty can also be there. So that will be the cost, but tax component will be given as a credit. Now, I will park this particular example here. Then now I'm going to come to section 16 subsection 5, and thereafter, after 128A, I will once again take up this very same example to maybe just to explain how the demand can be nil now in all these RCM cases. Now there is a new provision, 16 subsection 5, which in a kind has amended the limitation for 4 years. Instead of checking every year's limitation, now limitation provided under section 16 subsection 4 for FY 17-18, 18-19, 19-20 and 20-21 shall be till 30th of the November 2021. Now, this is an amendment in law. Please mind, this is not an amnesty. This is not a waiver. This is directly an amendment in the statutory provision. So earlier, there was a due date, which was maybe a due date of the September monthly return. Maybe in case of 17-18, there was an amendment in the law that March of the next year, it was postponed to March of the next year. Forget everything. Now there is a, for 17-18, 18-19, 19-20 and 20-21, the limitation or the time limit provided in 16.4 shall be read as 30th of November. Now the best part is, there are so many cases, we all are aware with this, there are so many cases which will get covered with it. Because so many times people could not file the return in time. There was maybe a delay of some time, maybe a couple of days sometime, maybe a couple of months in some cases. But all those cases will be cured. With my experience, I can say more than 90% cases which are being made for 16.4 gets covered by this. Maybe your experience, maybe 10%, 12% plus minus something like this. But most of the cases are covered by this kind of amendment. Now, the point is now how to get implemented. So I must say that government is liberal on implementing of this particular aspect. So that different stages we can imagine. Let us say in our case, in a particular case, there is a notice has been issued, but the case has not been yet adjudicated. This can be one of the cases. Or maybe the starting can be with the investigation stage. Even the show cause notice has not been issued. In that case, maybe the investigation is for 16.4 cases, that there is a violation of 16.4. Now there is an amendment. You can directly produce this amendment to the respective inspecting officer. He will certainly, or he will have to treat the due date now as November 2021 only. There is no other option with anyone. So you'll get relief at the investigation stage. Let us say there is a case is at the stage of adjudication, meaning thereby the show cause has already been issued, but the order has not been passed. So your answer, whatever defense you were taking earlier, but now you can take a defense that, okay, fine. Now there is an amendment in law that maybe I could not file my returns for 17, 18, 18, 19 timely, but now the due date is this much. And before that, this date, I have already filed my return and I have taken the credit. In that case, yes, at the adjudication stage, this will get settled. This aspect has already been explained in the circular as well. The other aspect can be like, let's say, order has been passed. let's say whether it is 73, 74 doesn't make much difference. But let's say order has been passed and you have filed the appeal before the appellate authority. Now, what's going to happen before the appellate authority? Same thing will happen. What was before the adjudicating authority? You can intimate this amendment, or most of the cases they are aware with it. Then at the appellate stage, the demand can be reduced by the appellate authority. Now, let us assume situations can be that the appellate order has been passed, whereby the appeal has not been accepted, number one. And I'm sure that since tribunal is not there, no one has filed the appeal before the tribunal. Number two, there can be a situation or a scenario whereby demand has been created by the officers, but the assessee could not file the appeal. Maybe intentionally, because of maybe some petty amount was there, they did not want to go for the appeal, or maybe whatsoever be the reason, maybe some unawareness or whatever be the things are, but assessee could not file the appeal or hasn't filed the appeal. In that case also, now the procedure has been laid for rectification of this kind of demand, because now this is an amendment in the law. It is not like some extra kind of benefit is going to be provided. So it is a specific amendment in the law. That means the demand which has been created, demand is erroneous. So government came up with a notification in section 148 to provide a special procedure. In this case, a rectification can be applied, and once the rectification is applied, there is a specific procedure. The same will be the demand will be adjusted or reduced in terms of this amendment, in tune of this amendment. Now, important aspect here is, please mind, the rectification which is provided in the law in section 161 has a specific time limits. And this rectification is in terms of section 148. Now, let's say if there is a situation whereby you got an order, whereby 2 or 3 issues are involved. One issue is 16.4, there are another 2 issues. And you want to file rectification. Yes, you can file the rectification, but the rectification will get restricted only and only with respect to demand created in the section 16 subsection 4. For other issues, this rectification application will not serve the purpose. So please mind, the rectification, the way of rectification is open for a very, very specified demands which is created for violation of section 16.4, and now the credit which are now available in terms of the revised provision or the amended provision. So for that aspect, this specific amendment type of provision has been brought in. Now, 1 or 2 aspects which are there, probably answers of them are not available. Now, please mind, there is now the question may be, one may have a thought in mind that since now the act has been amended. Now the act has been amended. Now what happened? Let's say someone has paid the demand. Let's say there was a demand for violation of, for alleged violation of section 16 subsection 4. There was a demand on account of tax, interest and penalty. Now, the taxpayer has paid those demands. The tax, interest and penalty has been paid. That has got adjusted as well, appropriated. No appeal is filed, obviously. Question is, can I claim a refund of that amount? Because in light of amended provision, in light of provision as on date, that demand doesn't exist. So can I claim a refund of it? That is what our issue. For this, government came up with a specific provision, which is section 150 of the Finance Act number 2, 2024, whereby it has been specifically provided that no refund of taxes shall be paid. No refund of taxes shall be paid, or taxes paid or input tax credit reversed. There will be no refund on account of that. Fair? So this is what a specific provision, whether it is, fair or not, I'm sure that the time will test, and maybe it will have to be examined in court of law, number one. But not touching the virus or validity of the provision. The provision as it stands, Section 150 of the Finance Number 2 Act 2020, Number 2 Act 2024, which I'll just once again read for benefit of all. It says, no refund shall be made of all the tax paid or ITC reversed, which would not have been so paid or reversed had Section 114 been in force at all material time, 118 precisely, of the Finance Act. This is section reference to the Finance Act provision, which means precisely Section 16, subsection 5. Now, this is, I must say, this is a specific deeming fiction that whatever the tax liability was there, or whatever kind of demand was there as per Article 265 of the Constitution of India, the taxpayer has paid more than that. So somehow this provision is going to restrict refund of that excess paid amount. This is a specific provision, has to be read very, very strictly. Any deeming fiction or a provision cannot go beyond what has been specifically mentioned. Why I'm emphasizing this is, now there are two scenarios, two additional scenarios which one can think upon it. Maybe my learned friends which are here, Sandeep ji, Mr. Pawa, Rajendra ji, or maybe other colleagues, they may have a food for thought on this and give their comments on it. First of all, this section 150 is talking about refund of taxes. It is making a restriction on refund of taxes paid or ITC reversed. It has not used the word demand. It has specifically used the word tax or ITC. Can there be a case whereby one can file a refund request for the interest or penalty which has been deposited? Number one. Number two, the lawmakers in its own wisdom has restricted through section 150 refund of the taxes or ITC reversed. Can a taxpayer who has already paid or reversed that ITC reclaim that? Is there any restriction to it? To my mind, this specific provision doesn't say so. If it doesn't say so, there is actually room available that as per law, it was not required. So keeping you with this, I'll go one step ahead. Yes, I must say that one good thing that if that has already been clarified through circular won't touch. If someone has not filed the appeal, it can be rectified. I think I have already covered it. No need to repeat that. Now let me come to touch upon Sandeep ji. How much time I have?
Sir, I think Rajendra ji, if you want to start early, then we can request Mr. Jatin to.
No, sir. Let him complete now. Let's not break his momentum.
All right, sir. Great, sir. So
Yes,
another
sir.
5-7 minutes, sir.
Whatever you say.
No, sir. I request, sir. 128A is not yet touched by Jatin ji. So at least 15-20 minutes should be, sir, given for that. Is a very important section, sir.
चलिए ठीक है सर.
So what I'm thinking is I will touch upon 128A. Then probably I'll share some of my thought on conjoint reading of 128A and 16.4. I think that will be a much useful for all of us. So precisely this 128A, popularly known as amnesty, but to be very honest, there is no amnesty. First of all, it is a waiver of our interest and penalty in certain circumstances. If I don't know, Rajendra ji, are you the host of the meeting?
Yes, sir.
If it is possible for you to just show the section, that will be great. I think in all cases, sorry, I could not have could not make any presentation. So it will be useful for everyone.
It is possible. Just a second.
Thank you very much.
Even you also can share it, but I'll share it from TechMan. Just a minute.
I'm speaking from the iPad. It will be very difficult for me. Section 120. I'll start by the time Mr. Rajendraji is going to post it here. Anyways, see, now we are having a specific waiver provisions whereby government has came up with a situation that if you are going to pay your interest and penalty in section 73 demands, I would say, in a very loose word if I'll use, in that cases, the if you pay your taxes, then the interest and penalty would be waived. This is what has been contemplated in section 128A. Precisely, there are three aspects, three type of cases are being covered. Number one, whereby notice under section 73 has been issued and the order has not been passed. Number two, where the order has been passed under section 73, but appellate order has not been passed. Number three, where the order under section 107 or 108 has been passed, that means passed by the appellate authority or the revision authority, but tribunal order has not been passed. In these cases, tribunal order will not be there because tribunal itself doesn't exist. You can have a look at this subsection 1 clause A, B, C. That is very, very important. So maybe we'll have our whole of our discussion towards this only. So couple of aspects which I would just like to highlight here is, first of all, this is what the demand or a proposed demand, because there may be a cases type of cases covered in clause A whereby demand has not been crystallized yet. So if there is a proposed demand or the demand in respect of financial year 17-18, 18-19, 19-20. So this waiver is only and only for 3 years. Please mind, there is an amendment in 16.4 which is giving relief for 4 years, but here the amendment is giving relief for 3 years. Now, important aspect is, law says that this waiver will be available to you if you have paid the full amount of tax by the notified date, which is 31st March 2025 as of now. Now, this scheme is not applicable, a very specific caveat is there, if there are proceedings are there or maybe a show cause notice or demand has been created for recovery of the erroneous refund. So for that, this is not there. Now, there may be some of issues or some of the situations are there. Let us say amount has already been paid by the assessee. This is what a first common issue which was coming to all of us. That maybe a person, there is a demand, a person has already paid part or full of the tax dues only before coming into effect of this particular section, of this particular, we can use the word scheme, waiver scheme. The date, the notified date for coming into force for this particular provision is 1st November 2024, which actually hasn't come yet. So answer is crystal clear that if you have paid the taxes, all type of recovery or payment of the tax will get counted towards this. When I use the word recovery, recovery means even it goes beyond your self-payment as well. Number one, you have self-paid. Number two, amount has been recovered by the department, that will also counted if the department has recovered the amount toward tax through your bank account. Even otherwise, if the amount has been recovered from the third party on your account, then that also will get covered. So that will also a payment of taxes in terms of this scheme. Couple of one or two other issues which we can just touch upon here is, kindly have a look at it. clause A, clause B, clause C. Now, we are very well aware that this particular waiver came with the intention, and the declaration was that when the demand is raised under section 73, if you'll have a reading of margin heading, if you'll just have a look out at the margin heading as well, it says waiver of interest or penalty or both relating to the demands raised under section 73 for certain tax period. But please have a look at the core provision. Core provision talks about section 73 only and only when in clause A and clause B. In clause C, it is absent. If I'll read this statutory provision, notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained in this act, where any amount of tax is already payable by a person chargeable with tax in accordance with clause A, clause B, and there is a disjunctive thereafter, semicolon is there. We all know that this semicolon has reached till Honorable Supreme Court, and this means there is a specific, this is completely disjunctive, and there is a separate clause is being started with, which is going to be linked with the initial point. So, by a person chargeable with tax in accordance with, I'm going to read clause C, an order passed under subsection 11 of section 107 or section 108 subsection 1, and where no order in subsection 1 of section 113 has been passed. Now, my question is, or maybe once again a food for thought, can we say section 74 cases will get covered here? A specific situation, there was a demand, let's say for 1718 or 1819. Demand has been raised under section 74. The assessee filed an appeal before First Appellate Authority. First Appellate Authority rejected the appeal of the assessee. Tribunal is not there. Assessee is waiting for getting the tribunal constituted. Whether this case will get covered here or not. Primarily when we read section 128A, at least my reading is this particular case, which I have discussed with you, squarely gets covered in section 128A, subsection 1, clause C. Because when I'm going to read in this manner, there is no reference of section 73. There is no caveat that clause C has to be read with clause B. But now there is a problem. If you'll go to the circular which has been issued on day before yesterday, on 15th October, circular number 238. When this circular reads this particular provision or provides the clarification from their own side, circular on their own inserts this word section 73 in the main clauses. It says section 128A provides waiver of interest or penalty and so raised under section 73 for certain tax period, which is margin heading. Then it says, therefore, provisions of section 128A are applicable in cases where notices, statements have been issued under section 73 for financial year this. So my humble understanding is, maybe the government intention could be with regard to giving relief in section 73 cases only. Maybe margin heading says so. But the statutory provision, as it exists on today, I don't know if there is an amendment in times to come, but as it exists on today, in my humble opinion, 74 cases which has crossed the first appellate stage gets covered here. Maybe we can see in times litigation on this. Maybe in times we can see some kind of retrospective amendment in this. We'll see. But this is one aspect which I thought I must share it with you. Number two, a very common issue is, let's say there are three issues. Once again, A, B, C. 73 notice was there or 73 order is there. you are having intention, no, my A and B issue is very, very sound. I do not want to pay tax. I'm sure when I'm not going to pay tax, interest and penalty will go. But I'm not sure about issue C. I'm not sure about C. The question is, can I go in this waiver for clause C? Now the answer is no. Because this waiver is being provided on the condition that whatever the demand is there, if you are going to pay the tax demand completely. So completely mean on all the three issues you will have to pay. Then only you will be eligible for this waiver under section 128A. Waiver, once again, is a specific provision. Waiver is not a matter of right. Legislature in its own wisdom provided you some benefit. And if this benefit is with some condition, then you will have to comply with that condition. And legislature has very clear in this aspect that they are specifically using that if you read here after clause C, pertaining to this tax period or part thereof, and the said person pays the full amount of tax payable as per the notice or statement or the order. So this is what has been provided in the Act. You cannot go beyond that. So partial is not permissible. Now let me come to some other issue of this 128A. So many issues are there in this 128A. Maybe I'll just touch last one. So many others are there. See, now we have commonly seen that when the State Department makes a case, normally they make the case on year-to-year basis. State Department gives you a maybe show cause DRC 01A, DRC 01 order for FY 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, 20, 21 separately. But normally when you see the Central Department, they normally goes by a single SCN for, let's say, 4 years, 5 years, or maybe 6 years, whatever they are going, maybe most of the time. This is not 100% correct. It may be, but this is what a common experience. 90% time you will see that the State Department goes by the year wise, Central Department goes in a consolidated manner. Law is same for all. Both the administration assess CGST as well as GST. They both assess both. Who is correct? Well, undoubtedly, if someone is going year by year, they cannot be wrong. Now there may be a question whether when the CGST authorities bunch with the show cause notice or orders in one, whether it is a correct or not, whether this is a correct practice or not as per law. On this, there is a judgment from Honorable Madras High Court in case of Titan's case, whereby Honorable Madras High Court in a very specified circumstances has said this practice is not correct. I'm not entering into detail of that as of now because that's not our issue. So I just want to touch one aspect only. Now let us say we have a show cause notice or an order whereby 4 or 5 years has been bunched. Let's say 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20 and 2021. 4 years are bunched in one notice. And now there is a I want to apply for this 128A. How would I apply? That should be a question in all of our minds. Law says that I need to pay the full amount of the tax payable. Which amount the law, or that means section 128A is talking about? In my humble understanding, in my humble opinion, the law here in section 128A is talking about the tax due for the period 17, 18, 18, 19 and 19, 20. The amount word is being referred to the amount which has been used in the first phrase where any amount of tax is payable. It has to be linked with that. So that means, to my opinion, to my understanding, to my reading, lawmaker wants, legislature wants that you pay the taxes pertaining to 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, and we will waive your interest and penalty of 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20 if the case is of 73. This is, let's say, this is what my reading of this particular 128A is there. But now we have a fact whereby my show cause notice order has been issued for 4 years or 5 years. I want to break it. In my humble opinion, yes, correct way out and the correct preposition is this show cause or order has to be break or has to be parted in such a manner that I should be eligible to get waiver of interest and penalty for 17, 18, 18, 19 and 19, 20 on payment of tax pertaining to 17, 18, 18, 19 and 19, 20. But now the problem is there is a circular which I was just referring, circular number 238. It says otherwise. It says since there is a single show cause notice or single demand, you have to pay complete tax. That means for 4 years, 5 years, you will have to pay tax. And then you will get immune from the interest and penalty with respect to 3 years. In my humble opinion, this is not a correct preposition of the statutory provisions. Please mind, and I'm sure that you all are aware, you'll agree with me, that circular is not the law. Circular is merely an opinion of the maybe a couple of officers or the government's opinion is there, but it cannot be said to be the law. Neither assessee nor the courts are binded by it. So I'm sure this particular aspect is going to be take a hit in the courts in times to come. Coming to the last aspect. Sorry, I think I exceeded some of my time more than what I have been allocated. But I'll just take last 2-3 minutes, whereby I just want to read 16.4 in. I want to read conjointly 16.4 and 128A. Friends, please mind, so many cases are there whereby Section 73 and 74, both type of demands are there for RCM cases, whereby the tax officers were of the belief or of the understanding that liability has to be there under RCM, and taxpayer has not paid the taxes. Now, what's going to happen? Let's say if there is a case of Section 73, demand was under Section 73. In that case, if I'm going to deposit the tax now, I'm going to make the invoice now under Section 31(3)(f), the credit will be eligible to me for the tax amount. And simultaneously, if that the tax period is 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, I will get the interest and penalty waiver in terms of Section 128A. So probably in these type of cases, a prudent call can be taken without litigating. One can get its demand at a zero level with these two type of provisions. Now, let me come to what happens in case of Section 74. Because what happens if the demand is under Section 74? In that case, first of all, waiver is not available, except what I have discussed exceptionally. So waiver is not available for interest and penalty. Secondly, when the demand is under Section 74, in terms of 17(5), the credit is also not eligible if I am paid the amount. So whole amount is the cost. Now, what can happen? Let's say a royalty is a classic case for this, or maybe secondment of employment is a classic case for this. But please mind, in all these cases, what happened? There was actually a bona fide belief. If I talk about royalty, please mind, royalty, this 9 judges bench judgment which came recently, 2 months ago, that was not in respect of service tax or GST levy on royalty. It is somewhat else. But one common point was whether royalty is a tax or not, that has been decided by the 9 judges bench. Otherwise, the Supreme Court case with respect to levy of service tax or GST is yet pending. It is yet to be decided. Nonetheless, I just want to take one aspect from there. That judgment was passed by a split verdict of 8-1. Still, one Supreme Court judge has said that royalty is in the nature of the tax, meaning thereby, if it is a royalty type of case, even today, when this judgment came, there was a bona fide belief that royalty is a tax, no further tax can be levied on it, meaning thereby Section 74 case cannot survive here. Similarly, in the case of secondment, due to the judgment of the Supreme Court in case of NOS, Northern Operating System, whole of the industry has started paying GST now. even the circular issued by the CBIC on NOS case itself specifically says Section 74 cannot be invoked just because for non-payment of the taxes. There has to be an evasion or suppression. Then only you can invoke Section 74, not otherwise, not each and every case. So most of the RCM cases would be like this. If you contest them, this will at least get covered from this will get maybe 74 aspect can be nullified in the appellate stage, maybe first appellate, or maybe at a tribunal whenever it gets formed. The moment it happens, you are having all the benefits. Payment of taxes, you can get the credit, 17.5 will not apply. And similarly, interest and penalty waiver under Section 128A will also be available. So one can plan its affair in such a manner that demands which has been created till now for 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20 on account of RCM, due to these provisions, these can be nullified at zero cost. This is what I just wanted to read. That is why I just wanted to read these provisions put together. I must say thank you. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity so that I could share some of my thoughts. Sandeep ji, I'm very sorry that I exceeded time allocated to me.
Sir, you are always welcome, sir. It is always, I think it's a treat to hear what you say. I have experienced it so many times. So it was the occasion for others to actually experience all those things. Thank you so much. I think this has opened quite a few windows with regard to 128A. And also with respect to 16.5 and 16.6, those issues are very, very pertinent. Without wasting any further time, I will now request Rajinder Arora ji, जिनके GST पीछे साथ में चल रहा है, GST साथी के तौर पे, हालांकि ये मूव, आई थिंक ही इज ऑन द मूव, बट अभी भी GST इनका पीछा नहीं छोड़ रहा कहीं पर भी, तो उसी का जो ज्ञान है वो आज हमारे साथ ये शेयर करेंगे. राजिंदर अरोड़ा जी, प्लीज सर.
Thank you, sir, for giving me this opportunity. Friends, before me, two learned speakers have already spoken, and one more is in the fray. Sandeep ji himself will be talking about the safari retreat. I think that is also going to be a treat, the retreat. So at least Sandeep ji will make it. So, but yes, sir, I am on the move, and I was crossing my fingers that till the time my turn comes, the battery remains in the laptop. So it is there. I will be able to speak whatever was being. Sir, Pava Sahab has already spoken about various circulars, that is 234, 35, 36. 237, 38 also is being touched upon by learned Jatinji. Friends, I would be taking you to two important aspects which are implemented with effect from 10th October 24. One is with regard to the reverse charge on the commercial property. Now, what happened is, before I actually take you to the change which has been brought into notification 13/17 CTR, I would take you to the background of this this taxability of the property. I would say the property, the services provided according through for accommodation services, basically. So earlier, the present situation, which I would like to bring home for the benefit of the listeners, is that there are basically two types of properties which can be identified on the basis of their usage. A property which is used as a residential dwelling unit, or a property which is used for commercial purposes. Now, any property, specifically when we talk about the residential dwelling unit, has been exempted since the beginning of the law. But from 18 July 22, the residential dwelling unit, the exemption belonging to that residential dwelling unit is being amended. And there was an exception created, and correspondingly a new entry was being inserted in the notification 13/17 CTR, whereby if a residential dwelling unit, it has been the services with respect to accommodation services for residential dwelling unit is being received by a registered person. The recipient, the tenant is a registered person for the residential dwelling unit. Thereby, it would bring it into the taxability or the payment of tax through reverse charge mechanism. Resultantly, if a residential dwelling unit is being taken by on rent by a registered person, a business who is registered with GST, shall be required to pay tax under the mechanism that is reverse charge and take the credit itself. Now there is another change. Before again the change, I would like to give you the background or the status quo till 10th October 24. If there is a commercial property which is being let out by an unregistered person to a registered person, it was used to be charged under forward charge mechanism only, or would be subject to tax under forward charge mechanism only. In other words, if a landlord of a commercial property is not registered, unregistered, and the recipient, the tenant of that commercial property is registered, rather, I would say till 9th, from 10th, the provisions are changed. Till 9th, there were never used to be any tax. 22, I beg your pardon, is available for not taking any service, for not taking registration with regard to the services up to 20 lakh rupees. Even in case of interstate supply of services also, there used to be an exemption. There is an exemption. But from 10th October, a fresh entry is inserted in the notification 13/17 CTR, which is relevant for the taxes payable under reverse charge mechanism, and thereby any services other than the residential dwelling unit, if provided by an unregistered person, received by a registered person, brought into reverse charge. My dear friends, this appears to be a very simple amendment, but let me tell you, this is going to create, and this is going to amend, this is going to bring in large number of changes into the tax plannings, into the commercial arrangements between the related persons also in the economy. For example, I am a partner, we are a partnership firm, and the property where the branch is situated belongs to the partner. Now the partnership firm pays rent to the partner, which is less than 20 lakh rupees a year. There never used to be any tax. The partner never used to take any GST registration. The partnership firm never used to pay any tax under RCM or FCM, whatever it is. But now from 10th October, that partnership firm would require to pay GST under reverse charge. And accordingly, again, it has to be governed through the agreement, the rent agreement between the landlord and the tenant. Therefore, which payment on accrual basis, because rent is governed, the payment of rent is governed through agreement, whatever arrangement, whether it's an advance payment or whether it is the conclusion of a particular period, but everything governs through agreement. So to my humble view, whatever payment or whatever rent accrues from or after 10th October, that would require the RCM to be paid by the registered person. There are multiple firms, proprietorships, companies where rentals have been paid properties from directors, partners, proprietors, or related parties. Under section 15 explanation attached. According to that, to these entities, no tax was used to be paid, neither FCM nor RCM. Now this will happen. So this is a very important change. One must take account of it. If there is no rent paid, friends, so far as the transfer pricing provisions are concerned, in case of GST, the government, the administrator is expected, or is not is basically looking forward to have the value of the transaction between related party more than the open market value. Because till open market value, whatever open market value is defined as per Rule 2728 of CGST rules, if if the rent is paid more than open market value, no problem. If rent is paid less than the open market value, there is a problem. But if you do not pay the rent at all, there is again a problem. But again, second proviso to Rule 28 may come to your rescue, where the recipient is eligible for the full credit. Any value can be the transaction value, disregarding the open market value. Therefore, this needs a complete attention with regard to the GST provisions and also the income tax provisions, my dear friends, because income tax works on a reverse funda, transfer pricing, domestic transfer pricing, because that whatever money or price which is paid or payable on account of rent should not be more. Here in GST, we want it should be more than open market value. They want it should be less than the open market value. So you need to devise a correct, optimized formula for this. Okay. Next change, which is again has been brought in to the statutory book with effect from 10th October 24, is with regard to very, very significant aspect which is there in the economy, troubling the GST, I would say, ecosystem, and that is with respect to scrap trading. There are Renu Sharma, if a person registered and given property without rent, does that what? I have already dealt with that particular scenario, Renu ma'am, and where there I spoke about the transfer pricing, GST, and both income tax related party transaction and value. Now, metal has always been the boon of thought for both the taxpayer as well as the administrators. Because what I have observed into the economy, that in case of metal trading, there are multiple chapters in Custom Tariff Act 1975. Chapter number 72, from chapter number 72, all the base metals, from chapter number 72 to chapter number 81. And what I have observed into the economy, that in case of, please bear with me, my internet is unstable because now I am in the bumper jam of Gurgaon the highway. So, what I was trying to know was that in case of metal trading, the traders were dealing into metal and supplying the metal ore from unorganized sector, largely supplying the metal to large manufacturers. The revenue model for them used to be GST itself. I don't want to deal with those such situations, scenarios here. But in order to curb, because there was considered to be a huge amount of malpractices into the metal trading, especially the scrap trading, metal scrap trading. So there are two provisions which have been introduced. Rather, the council in the You might not be knowing about it. I am making you aware. First change is with regard to that into metal scrap from metal scrap. Listen to me very carefully. I always say either I use the word borrowed from the statute book or from the jurisprudence. Nothing my personal. Wherever I will be giving my personal view, I'll let you know. But otherwise, each and every word is borrowed as it is with due consideration. So the word used is metal scrap falling in chapters from 72 to 81. If I may read those chapters, all base metals have been covered in these chapters 72 to 81. From chapter number 72 to chapter number 81. Chapter 72 talks about iron and steel, 3 articles of iron and steel. I'm moving ahead and I'm not repeating the chapter number. Copper and articles thereof, nickel and articles thereof, aluminium and articles thereof. Chapter 77 is blank, reserved for possible future use. 78, lead and articles thereof. 9, zinc and 80, tin, tin and articles thereof. 81, other base metals, cerments, articles thereof. These are chapter 72 to 81. All these metals, these are in the category of base metals in chapter Custom Tariff Act 1975. All the scraps belonging to these metals would be covered under this particular change, and 3 changes are there, right? The first change is with respect to that this entry also has been brought into the reverse charge. Now this is a goods. In case of goods, the charging section again, of course, is 9(3), the levy, but a separate notification in case of goods under by way of notification 4/17 CTR has been issued. In that, this new entry has been inserted, wherein again chapter from 72 to 81, if there is a scrap of any of these metals from registered by sold to registered, I mean supplier is unregistered, recipient is registered, then recipient, the registered person, is going to pay tax under reverse charge, whatever is the actual tax rate had it been dealt between B to B. I hope I'm clear about it. Next change with respect to metal. Here, up to 40 lakh threshold is there for not obtaining registration. Now, there is another notification 5/17 central tax. Listen to me very carefully. 5/17 central tax, which was issued way back in 19 June 2017. Before the implementation of law, multiple notifications were issued, if you remember. This is one of them. That notification used to say that if your all supplies are taxed under reverse charge, then you don't have to take any registration. I'm repeating. You are making supplies, but all the supplies have been paid under reverse charge. The tax is payable under reverse charge on those supplies. Then the supplier of those supplies whose tax is payable under reverse charge does not require any registration. Here in that particular notification, an exclusion, an exception is carved out, my dear friends, by way of this thing, that any person dealing in these metal scrap from 72 to 81 is outside this notification. What does it mean? It means any person who exceeds the threshold, first, who does not exceed the threshold falls under reverse charge by the registered person. Who exceeds the threshold cannot take a shelter of Notification 4/17 CTR that my all supplies are taxed under reverse charge. I don't have to take registration even if my threshold is beyond 40 lakh. I'm sorry. Here, an exception is carved out where that dealer, that taxpayer would require to take a compulsory registration and would not get the benefit of relief, which is being envisaged in notification 5/17 Central Tax, 19 June 2017. I hope I'm clear about it. Just a second. Sometimes my car does not allow me to sit without a belt. Never also way out. The next change in this segment is with respect to TDS, tax deducted at source, under section 51. Under section 51 of the Act, where another added in that particular notification of 2018, wherein in case of registered person supplying to registered person the metal scrap falling under chapter 72 to 81 would be subject to tax deduction at source at the rate of 2%, 1C, 1S or 2I. Of course, I wala lagta nahi hai, but still I am not going into section 51 nitty-gritty. This is the provision since the ages of DVAT or the VAT. Now, if you are falling under chapter 72 to 81, you are required to deduct as a recipient 2%. The same way TDS deductors have been doing since 2018. And a separate registration, that is TAN, also is required to be obtained other than the regular registration. Other than the regular registration. There is no, I don't know, is there an agreement is necessary between buyer? Sir, let me tell you, as per Contract Act and read with Sale of Good Act also, agreements can be oral, verbal, written. So if you enter into an agreement, all the conditions necessary to enter essential elements of a valid contract should have been there, then only it is a valid contract. So therefore, even if there is no written contract, but it is still a valid contract, there could be a difficulty in the civil court to establish the existence of the contract. That's it. Otherwise, it is a valid contract and you are bound by the conditions attached to it. So what I was trying to bring home that you have to deduct TDS. You have to deduct TDS when you are dealing business to business. Have to take a separate registration also. Now, since the time the provision has come in, different questions are pouring into me from across the country. Even now, not only the professionals are asking queries, but because of the other responsibilities assigned to me in the party itself, even the traders and business community is also reaching to me directly for asking their specific queries. So they have asked multiple queries. One of this was this. Another, one of the trader asked me a query that if I am procuring iron sheet scrap, larger sheets, out of that smaller portions have been left out after cutting. They procured it. And out of that smaller iron sheet scrap, different odd sizes, they made out some specific, they carried out some specific size again. Like there is a metal sheet, which is cut from different angles, and one small cut is available. And out of that, they brought out some specific size of 3 by 3 inch or 5 by 5 inch and made out a perfect standardized product out of it through various machines. Now, what would happen? Whether in case now it is scrap is procured, but a finished product, a metal product is manufactured out of that scrap. So these are two different products. So only to the extent where metal scrap is procured, purchased, this reverse charge or TDS is applicable, not for any other transaction. So friends, I think this particular change will go a long way. Last but not the least, I will not be touching more because now our stalwart, our Amitabh Bachchan is about to speak also. So only one or two things, smaller bites only with respect to portal. Portal, for senior lawyers like Jatinji and Sandeepji, portal is not that important. But for people like us who are actually dealing with the grassroots people only, portal is very important. Sandeepji must be listening that, okay, my turn will come, I will revert. So sir, there is one very important change with respect to portal, that is the data retention policy. Please mind it, my dear friends, that 72 months, 7 years, not 72 months, 7 years has been kept as the maximum time for retaining the data by GSTN on the portal. Last 2 months, when you were busy in filing your tax audit and income tax returns, they brought out 2 months data from July 17 and August 17 from the portal also. But when we started making some hue and cry, and traders went to them that it is difficult for us to, how would we actually see the data? So they reinstated the data for July and August. From 1st October, September data would have been taken away. From 1st November, October data must have been taken away if they have not kept it now again in abeyance. But they have said it in advisory. Kindly keep a downloaded files with you. We are going to remove it by any way, because that is the policy which has been approved by the council also. So nothing doing. But we are giving you some opportunity, some chance to download that data, keep it safe. Of course, 74 notices are still pending for 17-18. They are under adjudication yet for next 3-4 months, I believe more. 6th August was the last date, so September, maybe around till December or January, the adjudication will be completed for 17-18, 74 notices. Has to be completed. So this is one aspect. Another last aspect which I would like to touch base. On 17th, today itself, there is an advisory issued by GST. Now, we have been seeing in past 2-3 years since AIS and TIS has been incarnated, उनका जब से अवतार हुआ है भारत की धरती पे. Since then, we are seeing that, we are observing that income tax return forms are largely pre-filled forms we see on the portal. Similarly, now the GSTN also and the CBIC also have been keeping this endeavor upfront, foremost, that pre-filled 3B or pre-filled 3B. Of course, it cannot be pre-filled 1, but pre-filled 3B is carved out, it is made out for the taxpayer. And they have said it in this today's advisory that we have brought this pre-filled 3B from 1 or 1A or IFF, 1 IFF or 1A and 2A 2B. You have an opportunity to amend it. But from January 25, listen to me very carefully. They have said it in advisory, although it will be open for challenge in the court of law, that whether they can do it, whether it is being backed by any law or not. They said it that from January 25, the pre-filled data will not be allowed to be changed. So therefore, one has to gear up. One has to understand that whatever processes are required to be complied to reach out to the pre-filled form of 3B, these processes are required to be done in a very, very immaculable, very, very particular and concise and very, very, I would say, accurate manner, so that whatever data is populated in 3B is to a larger extent correct and complete. Therefore, this becomes very important for all of us to understand. Last but not the least, there is one circular 234. In that circular, there is a particular clarification which is issued, 9th number in entry. I'm just highlighting it because, I wanted to tell you all, Sandeep ji also, Jatin ji also, that what the government is doing and what the government is expecting us to do. On the contrary, sir, on 1st March 2018, the government brought out a circular number 34. In that circular, point number 4 was there, which was talking about the taxability. It was a clarificatory in nature, the taxability of other services provided by discoms, distribution companies, transmission and distribution power companies. They use 3 phrases: metering equipment on rent, testing for meters, transformers, capacitors, releasing electricity connections, shifting of meter service lines, issuing duplicate bills. All these phrases or type of services were exactly used in circular number 34, point number 4. It was clarified. Listen to me very carefully. I want to give you this bite for a food for thought and to ignite yourself that what the government, how the government is taking stance 2018 and 2024. And in that note circular, they clarified that these all services provided by distribution companies, power distribution companies, are taxable. Are taxable. Now, entry number, not entry number, clause number 9 of circular 234, they have said that these all services, again the repeat of the same type of services, these all services are exempted. And a new entry number 25 capital A has been inserted also in the exemption notification 12/17 CTR, where they have said it that these are exempted. And a new beautiful phrase by way of circular 236, they have clarified it as is, where is, basis also. Till now, also I have only heard this particular phrase only with respect to property matters. Now the government has borrowed the same phrase to the taxation matters. I don't know what kind of wisdom prevailed at that point of time when this phrase was being borrowed. Some other phrase could have been also used. And they have gone to an extent to clarify that phrase also. And they have admitted that this phrase is only used in property matters. So earlier they made it exempted, now they made it taxable. They themselves changed their stance after 6 years of time, and they say the regularization is as is where is. If a discom has not paid the tax on these services, nothing doing, no problem, we agree. If you have paid it, like Jatin ji was telling us about the circular number 237 with respect to 16(5) and 6. Otherwise also, in that circular 237, it says that whatever tax is already paid, no refund can be possible. Since past 74, 75 months, we have never seen if anything is paid bona fide by an innocent and honest taxpayer in comparison to a taxpayer who was laid back and waiting for some amnesty to come. So I don't know, but as is where is being a new term, new phrase in town, and it is being clarified. But I must tell you one more thing, that in as is where they have accepted that there are various interpretations, or rather first phrase they have used is two contradictory entries in the rate schedule. Like in case of 18% air conditioning, 28% is attracted to air conditioning normally, and a similar looking entry 18% also wherein the parts of railways used. Now they have clarified themselves. No, it is air conditioning, so 28% only. So they have accepted that similar looking entries or contradictory entries or the provisions which are subject to different interpretations. Therefore, we have brought this thing that as is where is, we are regularizing it. I do not know, I do not understand that when they themselves say that on multiple occasions there are contrary views, similar looking entries, then how can they invoke 74 for these interpretational matters? And all the DGGI notices for these interpretational matters have been alleged under section 74, where it was presumed that there was an intent to evade payment of taxes. So my dear friends, if you are contesting one of these cases, these circulars, especially circular 236, will come to your greater rescue, wherein the government itself is accepting that in case of interpretational matters, we are clarifying, regularizing things. And there are other judgments in earlier times also in case of these matters by way of tribunals and high courts, that extended period cannot be invoked. Therefore 74 cannot be invoked. So I now this is all from my side. Thank you very much, Sandeep ji, for giving me this opportunity. Now I would the baton is passed to you, sir. Thank you, sir.
And thank you so much, Rajinder ji. And this is not from your side. I think you are not finished as yet. There are a lot of things which you still have up your sleeve, which you can share with all of us. And we'll have to have another session, I think an extensive session with you. First of all, I would be seeking apology from all of you that now we have already ran short of time, which was there for 2 hours. All the busy professionals are there. So I am left with the deliberations on the aspect of safari retreats and couple of more issues. I would have commented upon what Jatinji has talked about with regard to section 16.5 and the way forward for the persons who have already paid the tax. But I would request that in case we can have this on another session, another webinar, perhaps on Sunday, that's fine with us. So Rajinder ji, अगर आप परमिट करें तो आज इसको क्लोज कर दें सर. आई थिंक ऑलरेडी 2 घंटे से ऊपर का टाइम हो गया है.
सर मेरी विनती तो ये है कि अभी भी 75 लोग बैठे हैं सर,
सर
और
बिल्कुल
आपको
बैठे हुए
सुनने
हैं
के लिए
सर.
बैठे हैं,
सर
आपको
बिल्कुल
सुनने के लिए बैठे हुए हैं सर.
नहीं बिल्कुल सर, वो आपको सुन रही है सर. अभी देखना सब खत्म हो जाएंगे.
सर ब्रीफली आप जो है ना सर, ब्रीफली
Sir, I'll just touch it because yeah, हम एक काम कर सकते हैं. We can take up the questions. I think people have questions to ask from you.
हाँ, सफारी रिट्रीट पे क्वेश्चन ले लेते हैं सर.
सफारी रिट्रीट पे स्टेट पे क्वेश्चन,
सिर्फ सफारी रिट्रीट पे क्वेश्चन ले लेते हैं.
Perfect सर. Perfect जी सर.
हाँ सर.
Sir, anybody has a
Please,
question,
friends,
so you can raise the hand.
Post, yeah. You can raise the hands. Very well.
Yes, you can raise the hand or you can post it in the chat box also. We can straight away answer. Pavanji is also there with me. We have collaborated for this. This is a joint venture with
Jatinji also is here, so we can seek his view also.
Of course, sir.
Yeah.
So
our secretary sir also is there.
Secretary sir तो है sir, smiling face. मुझे लग रहा है क्वेश्चन है ही नहीं सर सफारी के ऊपर किसी का.
संदीप जी क्वेश्चन बहुत हैं.
सर शुरुआत करिए सर.
सर थोड़ा सा ब्रीफ कर दीजिए काइंडली पहले.
जी चलिए सर. I'll just quickly touch the issue. So friends, the issue with regard to safari retreat, we must understand what were the facts of that case. अब मैं शुरू हो गया तो सर फिर टाइम बहुत हो जाएगा. So the issue with regard to safari retreat was that particular party had built up a mall. So that while building up that mall, they had used goods as well as services. So they had purchased certain material. They had also utilized the services of architect and other people, civil engineers and all those. So on which they had paid the tax to the suppliers, the taxable, that constituted taxable supply, and tax had been paid. So in this process, this particular company had accumulated a total credit of 34 crore was spent only on account of tax amount GST, which had been paid out by him on the taxable supplies which were utilized by him. Now, the whole model of this particular party safari retreats to build up that mall was that they wanted to let it out. They wanted to rent it out. So when they have to rent it out, we all know that as per Schedule 2, that is always considered as to be taxable supply on which the tax is payable as a rental supply, right? So on the one hand, they had a taxable supply being the outward supply of rental. And on the other hand, the inward supply, which was there on which the tax stood paid, the ITC had accumulated. So this particular party had approached the GST authorities to seek clarification as to whether I would be entitled to set off my ITC from my taxable output liability or not. To which the officers informed him that no, you have to pay the tax on your rental value, the GST, but you cannot take the input tax credit. So this is what has triggered the entire controversy, and that party had approached the Honorable Odisha High Court in this regard, where the prayer was made that Section 17(5)(d) in particular, which talks about the block credit, does not apply to the construction of a property which is used for the purpose of rentals. An alternative prayer was made that in case it does apply, 17(5)(d) does apply to the properties which are let out, then please declare it to be unconstitutional, being violative of Article 14, 19(1)(g) and Article 300 capital A, which is the right of property to the citizens of this country. So, of course, the prayer was that the safari retreat should be allowed the ITC. Now, Odisha High Court, accepting the prayer of the SSC, said we are reading down the provisions. Reading down of the provision is that where the court interprets a provision in a particular manner to save it from the unconstitutionality, the vice of unconstitutionality. In that scenario, the court said 17(5)(d) has to be read down to meet the objects of the act, and cascading effect has to be removed, and therefore the ITC, the person would be entitled for the input tax credit. Those provisions were read down in this fashion. So that matter had traveled to the Supreme Court, of course, at the instance of the Union of India, who was agitating that such a credit should not be made available to the SSC, because according to them, it falls under the realm of blocked credit 17(5)(d). Simultaneously, some writ petitions were also filed by some SSCs directly in the Supreme Court under Article 32, wherein the challenge to Section 17(5)(c) was also made. So 17(5)(c) is the provision which deals with the blocking of credit vis-a-vis works contract service in particular. So when they said works contract service, you are not entitled to take credit of that unless you are using it for the further works contract service, or except in the case of plant and machinery. So these two were the exceptions. Otherwise, works contract service, you are not entitled to take credit of that. So 17(5)(c) was also pressed into operation, saying that this provision should also be declared to be unconstitutional. Additionally, it was somebody had taken up a plea with regard to the bar under Section 16(4) that it should not apply. I think that's totally besides the issue. So SSC had made certain submissions. Those submissions were that unequals cannot be treated as equals, because you are saying that a person who has built up a mall, in case he's selling the property, then he's not taxable, and the ITC is to be not paid by him. ITC is not to be given to him. And similarly, a person who is further renting it out and paying the tax to the government, and he is also being denied that credit. So the unequals should not be treated as equals. And then on the constitutionality, intelligible differentia is not there. Credit claim, there is no break of chain insofar as credit claim is concerned. 17(5)(c) and 17(5)(d) are vague in sense. And then very interestingly, one of the arguments made by Mr. Arvind Ditar, a very senior counsel, he made the interpretation of the provisions in such a manner, saying that Odisha High Court should not have read down the provisions, read down Section 17(5)(d) at all. It was not required. According to him, if we see the plain interpretation of Section 17(5)(d) itself, the credit is available. So what he said, that 17(5)(d) and 17(5)(c), the language used in 17(5)(c) is plant and machinery, which has been used at 10 more provisions in the GST Act. Whereas when we talk about 17.5D, it is talking about plant or machinery and not plant and machinery. So in fact, the Additional Solicitor General had admitted that there appears to be some kind of mistake, which the court did not agree and said, rather it appears to be intentional on the part of legislature to say that plant or machinery which has been used. Because if you have a look at the model law which was implemented for the GST, even in over there also the term used was plant and machinery, where in the final law, the act has used the terms plant or machinery. So the court has found that aspect that plant or machinery has been used in 17.5D, and therefore plant is a much, it has to have a much broader interpretation, and it falls in the broader spectrum. So therein the judgments with regard to Income Tax Act had been relied upon, wherein it was in the case of Taj Mahal hotels, certain sanitary fittings and all those things were found to be plant. The court has applied the functional test with regard to the fact as to whether a particular immovable property would be treated as to be plant or not. So court says simply because you have built up a building merely for the purpose of sitting in over there, which is not an essential tool for the operational aspects of your company or the business, that will not be considered as to be a plant. But wherever the building is part of your entire operational aspects, in that case, it will be treated as to be a plant. So suppose if we have set up the machinery and we have built up a property or built up the civil construction over there, in that scenario, it will be treated as to be a plant. So that is how the plant aspect has been considered into this. And then second is the 17.5D uses the term on its own account. It says in case you are purchasing plant, if you are having the goods and services which are used for the plant and machinery on your own account, that will be barred. Now somebody has raised an argument that if in case I am using it in the mall, for which I am actually letting it out, then I'm not using it on my own account. To my own account would mean where there is a break of chain with regard to the taxable supply. So in case I am using that goods and services for the purpose of further making taxable supply, in that scenario, you cannot really call it to be on its own. In fact, the reading of the judgment shows that the Honorable Supreme Court has majorly agreed with the submissions made by Mr. Arvind Datar and has literally accepted whatever has been said by him. Whereas the constitutional validity of 17.5D as well as 17.5C have been upheld, saying that there is nothing wrong. There is no reason saying that there is no intelligible differentia or anything of that sort. It is not violative of Article 14(19)(1)(g), and there is no reason. There is no requirement of reading it down. So the court has interpreted the provisions in such a manner where the benefit which was being sought to be availed by that particular party safari retreat has actually been extended. So if you put it in other words, कि operation fail हो गया पर जो मरीज है वो फिर भी बच गया. So it's something of that sort that the person has survived. Even after the operation has failed, all the challenges had failed. But the interpretational aspect, the claim has survived. So this is how we are now in the ITC has to interpret it. At the same time, it has opened up the window with regard to availment of ITC. It has also opened up the window for all of us professionals, wherein we can use this opportunity to actually get the particular supply interpreted in a manner so that it falls within the realm of plant, that it is the 17.5D exception is not applicable over there. And whatever I'm using, it is for the purpose of using it in plant, even if it is an immovable property. So therefore, the ITC should be made available to it. The Supreme Court has sent the cases back to High Court, where this aspect has to be looked into. The cases have been remanded back, or the fresh writ petitions were required to be filed. And all these issues will be taken up. Two exceptions they have specifically carved out. One with regard to hotels, and secondly with regard to cinema halls, where they said the cinema halls or the hotels would not be considered as to be falling within the realm of the term plant. Whereas warehouses and the malls, if those are meant for the purpose of leasing it out, then it would, of course, be considered as to be falling under the term plant. And accordingly, the benefits have to be granted. So I think this is again breaking up a huge Pandora box, and a lot of litigation is likely to arise in this aspect, because the departmental authorities would always say that you do not fall within the aspect of plant, and therefore 17.5D would apply. And secondly, now since the judgment has come from the Honorable Apex Court, it is likely that GST Council would also be making its own efforts to negate the benefit which has been granted. It's possible there is a retrospective amendment, or there is some kind of clarification come confusion which is always created by the GST Council circulars. So we are all anticipating those things pitching in, and again we would be actually fighting a long battle again. But still, having all said all those things, at least there is a ray of hope for all of us, for the assessees who are spending crores and crores of rupees and actually contributing to the, I would say, the economy, that they should be granted the benefit of input tax credit there, because otherwise it leads to a double taxation. Cascading effect is not removed. Actually, it will encourage a lot of investment in the real estate. I was reading an article in Economic Times where the real estate agents, real estate players were actually very happy with the judgment, saying that this will actually now attract a lot of investment, wherein the buildings would be built which are to be let out, or the co-working places are there, and people can actually take the credit of that, and it will reduce the overall cost and also generate more revenue for for the entire economy. So these are my views on this. I would request Pavanji if you can throw some light on this. Pavanji, please. Sir, unmuted.
Thank you, Sandeepji. I believe Sandeepji have elaborated the judgment so nicely. I'll just touch upon one or two aspects of the judgment. Actually, if we look at the judgment, whether I have the queries around it, I'll ask Sandeepji to throw a light on that. So now what has happened is there are two clauses under section 17.5 which deals with the input tax credit on construction activity. One is 17.5C and 17.5D.
Yes.
17.5C deals with works contract, which says that works contract services other than used for the construction of immovable property other than plant and machinery. And 17D says goods or services or both used for the construction of immovable property except plant or machinery. Now here, the distinction which has been made by the Apex Court is that plant or machinery are treated independently. For clause C, they are treated combinedly, and said that it has been defined under section 17 itself in the explanation. Therefore, there is a specific definition for plant and machinery. Whereas the term plant individually has not been defined, so they went up to the income tax judgments, relied on that, and said use the functionality test to say that what should be considered as plant and what should not be considered plant. Again, it's very subjective issue how you can put the functionality test to each and every building.
Absolutely.
The second aspect which I was wondering was that 17, if I have constructed the building by, largely we see that the contracts for larger buildings are given on composite basis, like which are with material contracts. And whenever I give a with material consent, it essentially will qualify as a works contract services. So in case I have engaged a contractor with material, I'll not get the credit. And on the contrary, 17D deals with goods or services or both. So one view which comes is, since it's goods or services, therefore, if I buy the goods individually, services individually, then I'll be eligible to take the credit, but will not be eligible to take the credit when it comes to works contract. Now, my question comes here is that 17.5D deals with goods or services or both. Now, the term uses or both, one. Two, the term services is defined. Works contract typically has been deemed to be service. So it is declared as a service. So it's not a different thing. So can we say that even the works contract service should fall under 17.5D, or 17.5C will have an overriding effect on the 17.5D? So Sandeepji, can you just put a light on your view on this?
A very good question. In fact, that this is what going to be the future of this litigation. See, if you have a look at 17.5D in isolation, the 17.5D itself should grant you that benefit when we talk about either it should be goods or services or both. and if you are using this using it for the purposes of construction of plant, then you are entitled for credit. So that's a simple reading of 17.5D.
Simple reading, yes.
So when you go to 17.5C, it specifically talks about works contract service. And then it has to be, the term uses plant and machinery, right? So if we go by the interpretation which has been given by the courts in the past, that specific entry or specific provision would always be given preference over the general provision. I believe there would be an interpretation that 17.5C, when it talks about works contract service being in the negative list, you will not be entitled for credit. So that
Right.
interpretation is quite possible, that in case you are using it for works contract service, then you are not entitled. Now see, that again leads to another problem.
Yeah, that's again bring to an absurdity that if I'm availing the work contract services.
You are right. You know, the absurdity is because of the fact that 17.5C is not required in case we have 17.5D at the end of the
Right.
day. 17.5C may not be required. Now I'm talking about some other problem. See, if we go back to the VAT era or the pre-GST era,
GST, you know.
we used to talk about the composite works contracts, one with regard to the where the goods are being supplied, goods and services are being supplied together, which was a composite works contract. Then
Right.
there were certain contracts where the goods were supplied separately and the services were being supplied separately. And people used to split it up depending upon the financial, depending upon the planning with regard to the lot of works contract as to what is going to be the taxation. So actually, this interpretation or this judgment of Safari Retreat has taken back us to that very era. Now people will have to plan in future that in case their services are, in case they are going to enter into a contract, there should be two separate contracts, one with regard to goods, another with regard to services. Because then it will fall under 17.5D and not under 17.5C, because then it will not become a works contract. And then the department would always declare this to be a composite works contract and then would be denying you the credit under 17.5C. So in fact, I think legislature has to pitch in and has to come out with some kind of clarification.
Absolutely.
If all they want to, or some provision has to be made where there is a complete clarity on this issue as to how the things will be handled in future. So I think whatever you have, the point which you have raised is absolutely pertinent and needs to be deliberated upon. But as a consultant, I think, or as an expert in the GST, I think we should advise our clients based upon this aspect that as of today, as it stands today, the works contract service where you are availing it for the purpose of plant, the credit may not be available to you, considering that this specific provision would always override the general provision.
All right.
Sir, Sandeep sir, I also have a question. Sir, why the Honorable Supreme Court sent the case back to the Honorable High Court? And
Right.
what would be the impact of deliberations which would take place at the High Court level again?
Well, sir, if you see para 52 of the judgment, it talks about the functionality test. The Supreme Court in the earlier set of litigation pertaining to Income Tax Act also had considered the term plant and what would be the meaning of the term plant in the context of Income Tax Act with regard to the investment allowance and with regard to depreciation. So court has considered that this is the functionality test which has to be considered for determining as to whether this particular supply would be treated as to be plant or not. This particular construction will be treated as plant or not. And the court says since the Safari Retreat, the Odisha High Court has not gone into this aspect as to whether the mall which has been built is actually a plant or not. Therefore, the matter needs to be remitted back. You take a situation, sir. In a mall, the company who has built up a mall, this is also possible that they may use certain blocks of building or certain portion of building to be given on lease, and certain portions are sold outrightly. There could be certain things where there is a concept of saying that you pay up this much of amount for certain months and thereafter the ownership can be transferred. There could be different sets of agreements. So though all those things have to be considered as to whether the functional test as laid down by the Supreme Court has been fulfilled or not. Rather, I think it should have gone back to the authorities, assessing authorities, who would be in a better position to decide this. But be that as it may, I think we are happy that this matter has gone back to the High Court, and with the ray of hope that the benefit should be granted. So I think this is the reason why the matter has gone back to the High Court, sir.
Sir, you have said that for in case of theaters and hotels,
Right, sir.
there is no question of determination whether the building falls into the category of plant or not.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What does that mean, sir?
Sir, the Supreme Court has noted down specifically in the context of two judgments, sir, Anand Theatres and Karnataka Power Corporation, where they said, therefore, the decision in the case of Anand Theatre cannot be applied while considering the question of whether a mall or a warehouse building other than a hotel or cinema theatre can be said to be planned. So they said in the case of hotel or a cinema theatre, we have already held that it cannot be treated as to be a plant. But for the question of with regard to warehouse or a mall, these aspects have not been considered earlier, so this needs to be deliberated upon whether this can be considered as to be
But
plant.
sir, Honorable Apex Court said Karnataka Power Corporation, 3 judges bench, so it is already overruled, ruling the Anand Theatre. They have also mentioned this aspect. What I could understand by way of writing the phrase, but I may be wrong, sir. That's why I specifically asked.
Right, sir. Please, sir.
Other than theater and cinema theater and hotel building, what they wanted to press thrust upon was that it is already established. There is no point discussing this.
Maybe you're
It is already their plant is.
No, sir, I think no. I think they have rather stated that the theaters and cinemas are not plant at all. This is what
Hotels and theaters they have used, sir.
Theaters and cinemas, or cinemas.
Theaters and so hotels will cover because Taj Mahal Hotel
No,
under
sir, no.
income tax
Sir, Taj Mahal
also.
Hotel, they have distinguished that the building of Taj Mahal Hotel is not plant, but the fittings, etc., used over there will be considered as plant. So that the court has rather gone into this issue that in case the entire building has to be held to be plant, then the question of treating those sanitary fittings and other things will be plant does not arise at all.
So it means, sir, then in case of hotels, the credit shall be available after this judgment?
No, sir.
No.
I doubt, sir. I doubt.
In case of malls, will it be available?
Yes. In case of malls, where the malls are given on lease for leasing out or for renting out, then it will be.
Warehouses, sir.
Warehouses, yes, sir. According to my knowledge, sir, warehouses will definitely get the benefits.
I think warehouses is the biggest area which is area of trust which are looking for this.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
if you permit,
and then, sir,
on the compliance side,
factory buildings.
Pawan ji, kuch कहना चाह रहे हैं?
Yeah, I was coming to that. This is something functionality stressed. Rajendra ji, what is referring to factory again needs to be seen. Para 52 is referring specifically. It is saying you need to see whether there is any specialized construction which is required by the owner, and from there you have to actually establish whether there is a functionality, it qualifies as a plant or not. Rajendra ji, I had one query on the compliance side actually. On this, presuming that functionality test is accepted for particular building, and then accepting that the safari retreat doesn't undergo a change because of the legislative retrospective amendment or something like that. What is happening is that in the past, the companies have taken the credit and reversed the credit either under 17.5 or otherwise. So 17.5 credit is ineligible credit which has been reversed. Now the return format has been made in such a form 17.5 ineligible creditors put into a basket where they are considered to be a permanent reversal, and other reversals are considered as which are to be taken again recredit for the which has to be taken by the assessee. Now in case assessee has already reversed it under 17.5 which is considered to be a permanent reversal, can I again take a recredit of those reversals now looking at the safari retreat decision?
Very tough, sir.
Yeah, very tough. In fact,
and second, just adding on to it, when they reversed it, they also capitalized it.
Sir, Sir,
Look,
one thing which Jatinji was referring to when he was talking about no refund is possible in case 16(4) taxes has already been paid or reversed. So he was referring that if we reclaim that credit, which is already
right.
reversed, so that is possible. To me also that is possible, but with an added variable which you have just added lately, that it is being capitalized also. So thereby the books of accounts, that expenditure, that expenditure is subject to depreciation already.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the condition for availing the post availment condition of 16(2) gets failed there. That
Hmm.
either depreciation or ITC. So if depreciation is claimed, then once chartered accountant brother was telling me that it is possible for revision of books of accounts. Pradeep ji, Singla Saab, it is possible for revision of books of accounts, bring out the depreciation from the books of accounts, reduce the value of the assets, or create a separate account which is the expenditure which is adjustable against, and create an asset there other than the fixed asset, and then the current year take it to the uh, 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 reinstate it as a credit. So, but I don't know whether it is possible or not. These many
Quite
things
a
to be done.
complex situation.
राजेंद्र जी एक चीज भूल
राजेंद्र
गए
जी,
सारा
इसके ऊपर तो
सर,
सेपरेट एक लेक्चर चाहिए.
राजेंद्र जी ये सारा कुछ करने के बाद आप एक चीज भूल गए, ये सारा कुछ करने के बाद उसको वकील के पास जाना पड़ेगा.
Truly said, truly said. So,
So I believe, Rajendra ji, this itself requires a complete discussion on this, how to handle this
complete,
kind of a situation.
sir, I would say complete transaction advisory.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sir, I'm just adding one more question to it. So now
पवन
it
जी,
is
पवन जी,
23, 24.
पवन पवन जी, सर मेरे को लग रहा है हम बहुत ज्यादा ओवरशूट कर रहे
Yeah,
हैं.
right. I
I
think
think
we
sir,
can keep it
Rajinder ji, I think
separate.
this discussion would never end. Let's plan for a physical seminar on these issues.
Jatin ji has
That
come back, listening our hot arguments and discussions.
जतिन जतिन जी इतनी देर में एक टैक्सेबल सप्लाई करके आए हैं जिसके ऊपर रिवर्स चार्ज लगता है.
Very nice, very nice.
सर
चलिए
एक सेशन रख लीजिए इस पे संडे को,
सर,
जैसे
बिल्कुल
आप
सर, बिल्कुल सर, दिस इज व्हाट वी आर प्लानिंग. सो राजेंद्र जी आपसे रिक्वेस्ट है सर, एक सेशन और कर लेते हैं सर, छोटे छोटे सेशन करते हैं. आई थिंक
संडे को छोड़कर कर लेना.
संडे को छोड़ के कर लेंगे सर अभी, क्योंकि फेस्टिवल सीजन भी आ रहा है, बट वी हैव टू प्लान इट अकॉर्डिंगली, बिकॉज़ बीच में किसी ना किसी एक दिन शाम को कर लेते हैं सर.
Perfect, sir. Perfect, perfect.
यस सर, चलिए सर, दैट विल
एक दो पॉइंटर दे देता हूँ आपके अगले डिस्कशन के लिए. Maybe
Yes, sir,
whenever you are
please.
meeting physically or otherwise.
जी.
Kindly consider many of the state GST law are different from the CGST law as far as section 17(5)(d) are concerned.
Okay.
So 17(5)(c) everywhere says plant and machinery. CGST Act it says 17(5)(d) plant or machinery, whereas couple of SGST Act uses plant and machinery in both the act. Kindly consider this impact of this.
That's interesting, actually.
Number one. Number two, kindly consider and review the impact of para 32, whereby Honorable Supreme Court has specifically said there are two exceptions to the 17(5)(d) as compared to 17(5)(c). One of them is only plant or machinery. The another one is on its own account. That
Yes.
means there are two escape ways which are independent of each other. Can I take a view that even if something is not categorized as a plant, but if it is not constructed on my own account, then also restriction under 17(5)(d) will not apply. And on my own account has been described by the Honorable Supreme Court in the same para to mean when the asset is being intended for being sold, rented, or licensed. All the three things are being covered into it. So I think this is going to give a second dimension to it. So I just pointed it out. जब भी आप next बैठ रहे हैं तो ये बहुत marathon exercise है एक पैरा.
Yeah.
Sir, Sandeep ji, all you three learned and esteemed lawyers, have applied one statement: when you cannot convince them, confuse them.
Anyways,
चलिए सर, साम दाम दंड भेद सब चलता है सर. चलिए, so with this, sir, we now come to the end of this session. A very, I think, very enthralling and very interesting session. We have all discussed a lot of issues. Now, I'll request Janrup Janji to please say a vote of thanks, and I'll also request Ranjit Sharma ji to please give his concluding remarks after this.
थैंक यू सर. आज का सर्वप्रथम मैं अपने ऑल इंडिया फेडरेशन नॉर्थ जोन की स्टडी सर्किल टीम का धन्यवाद करना चाहूँगा, स्पेशली राजेंद्र जी का, कि एक कॉल पे ही जैसे ही कोई चीज़ आती है, चेंजेस सर्कुलर्स आते हैं, शाम को ही एक वीडियो बन के हमारे सामने आ जाता है. तो राजेंद्र जी का सर्वप्रथम धन्यवाद है. इतना बड़ा ज्ञानवर्धक उन्होंने आज प्रोग्राम और गेस्ट स्पीकर पहली बार सुने मैंने हरजाई जी को और पवन जी को. रियली बहुत ही मतलब आज सुन के आया कि कितने सरल शब्दों में उन्होंने अपने सब्जेक्ट को रखा जो हमारी समझ में हमारे ज्ञानवर्धन आज किया है. तो राजेंद्र जी ऑलवेज तैयार रहते. मेरी बात हुई थी जैसे ही आए थे सर्कुलर, तो मैंने राजेंद्र जी से कहा, मैंने कहा जी एक सेशन रख लेते हैं, वेबिनार रख लेते हैं. तो उन्होंने कहा चलो ठीक है 17 तारीख को रख लेते हैं. तो धन्यवाद. उसके बाद मैं हरजाई जी का और पवन जी का धन्यवाद ज्ञापित करना चाहूंगा कि इतने बढ़िया सरल शब्दों में सभी का ज्ञानवर्धन किया है. और हमारे चेयरमैन साहब, सफारी रिट्रीट काफी अच्छा डिस्कशन चला. पूरा डिस्कशन का आधा हिस्सा हम सफारी पे है. और अंत में भी हमें एक और वेबिनार करने की जरूरत है सफारी पे. जिस तरीके से डिस्कशन चला कि एक बढ़िया सा और इस पे सेमिनार हो, फिजिकल सेमिनार हो तो और बेटर रहेगा. मैं चेयरमैन साहब से अनुरोध करूंगा कि फिजिकल इस पे सेमिनार रखा जाए. उन्हें हरजाई जी को और पवन जी को भी साथ में बुलाया जाए, तो एक फिजिकल इंटरेक्शन भी हमारा हो जाए. थैंक यू वंस. और लास्ट बट नॉट लीस्ट हमारे सभी सदस्य मेंबर्स जो है, क्योंकि बिना मेंबर्स के आए हुए कोई भी वेबिनार या सेमिनार सफल नहीं हो सकता है. आज 100 से भी ज्यादा लोग जुड़े हैं, उनका सबका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. थैंक यू सर.
रंजीत जी कृपया अपने सुविचारों से हमें कृतार्थ करें सर.
थैंक यू राजेंद्र जी. थैंक यू चेयरमैन साहब. सर सब कुछ तो आप लोगों ने कह दिया. मैं मेरे पास कहने के कोई शब्द नहीं है. मैं तो सिर्फ यही कहूंगा कि आज का जो सेमिनार था, आज के समय की, आजकल की जरूरत थी हम सब प्रोफेशनल्स के लिए, क्योंकि जितनी चेंजेस हो रही हैं डे टू डे, कोई ना कोई चेंजेस कर रहे हैं. तो इसका जैसे जैसे मतलब चेंजेस होती है, आप भी तो वीडियो डालते हो. बाकी जैसे पवन पावा जी ने बताया, जतिन जी ने बताया, और हमारे चेयरमैन साहब संदीप जी ने भी अपना सफारी रिट्रीट में बताया है. ये बहुत अच्छा सेमिनार रहा आज का हमारा. ऐसे सेमिनार होते रहने चाहिए और इससे हम लोगों सबकी नॉलेज बढ़ती रहती है. मैं आप सबका बहुत तहे दिल से धन्यवाद करता हूँ कि आप सबने आज अपना कीमती समय दिया, हम लोगों को इस जो नोटिफिकेशंस आई है उसके बारे में जागरूक कराया. और सारे मेंबर्स का धन्यवाद करता हूँ जिन्होंने ज्वाइन किया. थैंक यू.
थैंक यू एवरीवन. प्रणाम. शुभ रात्रि.